Hi everyone, Carter Krishnaiyer here for Beyond the 90. I wrote an article a few days ago which has sparked some controversy. There's a lot going on, and the timing of some of the articles I've written are not coincidental. I'll just put that out there. The article we're going to talk about in a video tomorrow that I penned on Friday, that has actually been something I've been thinking about for months, or if not longer, about investment in USL and USL expansion and USL HQ competing with their own clubs, with their own licensees, with their own franchises. We're going to save that for another video. Let's talk about MLS, NWSL, MLS Next Pro, and where they might be getting some investment because of USL's, I would say, difficulties. So we're having these discussions in the context of the labor strife currently in the USL Championship and the loss of Tormenta FC for the 2026 season. And I again want to stress Tormenta FC is a club that has done, from my vantage point, everything right. Local ownership, they have tried to build a stadium, they have started a women's team, they have started an academy, they have sold multiple players to USL Championship clubs. Some of those players have ended up in MLS. They have sold a player to a professional club in England. That is how you develop players. This is what we want in the US soccer system. But as I said previously, US soccer doesn't seem to have any interest or concern about this. And for USL, it's just churn and burn with franchises, with clubs. So let's talk about why I think USL is potentially, this is from conversations I'm having, this isn't a theory of mine, USL is losing out on investors that would buy individual clubs. And those investors are instead buying minority shares of clubs in NWSL or MLS. This is in MLS itself, not MLS Next Pro. We're going to get to MLS Next Pro in a few minutes. The reason this is happening is because there is no revenue sharing in USL. It is impossible to make money in the current USL championship, in the current USL structure. It's why I think one of the things the players have to make a decision on, the players union, is how aggressively are they going to press structural reform in their own CBA renegotiation. Because I do think they could make a deal which doesn't address anything in the USL structure. And we're going to be back at this point in the future, because what will happen at that point is we will be talking about how there is a lack of upward mobility in terms of what you can earn and what clubs, what kind of revenue clubs can generate because of the USL structure, which affects everything. It affects what kind of staff you can hire. It affects technical staff, whether they're going to stay, or whether, as we have seen in 4 different instances in the last 3 off seasons, a sitting USL Championship coach will go and take an assistant coach's job in MLS because it pays more money to be an assistant coach in MLS. You can couch it in soccer terms. Oh, MLS, they don't like to hire USL coaches, although they did hire Eric Quill, as we know, from New Mexico United to coach FC Dallas. But they don't like hiring USL coaches. They just want people who are in their ecosystem. I've heard this as the pushback. That is partially true. But the other part that's true about this, that has to be stressed to everyone out there, is that it pays more to be an assistant in MLS than it does to be a head coach in the USL Championship. This is structural. This is because of the structure. So if you're an investor, yeah, it's cool to say I'm the majority owner of X club in the USL Championship or in USL League One, but it may be just a better investment to buy 5% of an MLS club or 15% of an NWSL club and reap the dividends of that. So I think that's safe. Now let's get to the MLS Next Pro piece, because MLS Next Pro could have been killed off. This thing is ebbed and flowed, right? When MLS started Next Pro, it looked like they had a lot of momentum, and USL, to their credit, to the credit of the Papadokises and everybody in that league office, punched back. And they have been on the front foot the last 2 years. But now I think MLS NP is back in the game, because what we're finding is obviously the cost of entry to MLS Next Pro is significantly less than buying a USL League One team. We see a team pull out of USL League One, Tormenta. A big part of the expenses and the cost overruns in USL League One is that in 2018, when they started the league, it was supposed to be regionalized. Teams were not going to have to travel from Statesboro, Georgia to Boise, Idaho. Teams were not going to have to travel from Naples, Florida to Palmdale, Lancaster, Palmdale, that area of California. Teams were not going to have to travel from Greenville, South Carolina to Spokane. Well, guess what? They have to, because USL has not built out the league, has not developed the critical mass they need. So you're paying $5 million to get into that league, and then you're paying for the privilege of losing much more money in travel costs and expenses and cost overruns. And again, this is where I'm very sympathetic with Tormenta. Their travel was very difficult, and they tried to maintain a roster mostly of younger players. You see a lot of USL League One teams signing veteran players. I don't know why any player over the age of 30 needs to be in that league, quite frankly. Maybe you can have one or two per roster, but that's it. It should be a development league. Then it has some value in the U.S. soccer pyramid. Beyond the value it has some additional value, I should say. It has some value because it's deepening the pool of markets and grassroots football and development, all of that stuff. But Tormenta did it the right way. Some other clubs, I think, have just signed a lot of veteran players, have dipped into USL Championship and grabbed guys that are older. I don't know that serves a purpose in the third division. But it's also, so you save on travel costs if you go to MLS Next Pro because you are in a region. You're in basically a pod. You do not leave your region. Now, the downside is, of course, you're playing a lot of MLS reserve teams. The level of competition is not as good in MLS Next Pro as it is in USL League One. I think that's plainly obvious. I know there are Chattanooga fans and maybe some Carolina core fans that will push back on me on that, but that is not, I don't want to entertain those arguments. You might have more players who become household names that come out of MLS Next Pro because they're connected with MLS clubs and they've come through those academies and they've been put in the Next Pro League. But I'm telling you, a lot of technical directors in MLS would prefer their players be loaned into USL because the level of competition is higher and there's more on the line in each match. So that's in USL's favor. But here are the issues. The travel, as I mentioned, you could save hundreds of thousands of dollars playing in MLS Next Pro versus playing in USL. Hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. And there is less, from what I understand, in league fees also. Now, I know what the league fees are in the USL Championship. They're getting exorbitant. USL League One, I think the league fees are lower. But if the number in the championship, which I'm not going to divulge, I'm not at liberty to divulge, but I know what the number is going to be this year. If the USL League One is even 2/3 of that number, in terms of all the league fees, then I mean MLS Next Pro is a third of that. And I think here's the key piece that appeals to me from the soccer development side. You see clubs that are able to invest in their infrastructure. Obviously, Carolina Core, which has been a great story. The new team coming online in Michigan, in the Grand Rapids area, is going to be a great story. Connecticut United is trying to do it. They're trying to get a stadium built. They've run into some roadblocks there in the state of Connecticut. But you've got money left over to invest in soccer infrastructure. This was part of my vision with the NASL, which was a blank canvas when we started it, is, okay, you have money, you're not paying an MLS expansion fee, you have money left over to invest in infrastructure. Now, we know the big talkers in NASL, like the New York Cosmos, even though they came out with this kind of ridiculous stadium plan in Belmont, right, this out of the gates, and thought they were competing at the highest level in the world, right, and so they kind of poisoned the well for the NASL. But it didn't happen quite as I think NASL had anticipated. But and USL has done a great job of getting some of their teams over the line with soccer-specific stadiums. But there's more money available if you only pay a reduced expansion fee and you're saving that much on league fees and travel every year. And quite frankly, the MLS name carries some weight. I've seen how, and I push back against this personally about MLS Next Pro and its connection to MLS and how it's been viewed in some markets where USL is trying to compete with them. I've said, look, USL is a higher level of football, soccer. It is an established league. It has done some pretty important and incredible things for the U.S. soccer ecosystem that don't often get acknowledged by the masses. But at the same time, perception is reality. And the perception is MLS Next Pro is the next division below MLS to people who are not soccer people. And that sometimes includes investors. And that includes people who write for trade publications. That includes people who write for sports business publications. So MLS Next Pro is back in the game. I'm not saying they're going to knock USL out. I don't think that's happening now. It looked like it might happen a few years ago, but they're back in the game. There are investors that are taking a second look at Next Pro. There are investors who have kind of decided they're not going to go to USL, even though they've been in talks with USL. So let's see where this all shakes down in the next few months, next few years, quite frankly.